Hey everyone, my name is Mike Huber, and I'm coming to you from my lovely basement office here in New Jersey to present my story of finding purpose to you. I'm just so grateful and humbled to have the opportunity to speak to all of you as we in here now in almost late May, come out the backside of the coronavirus quarantine, and many of us, including myself, have struggled over the past 2.5 or 3 months with a new way of life, and to have the opportunity to talk about what actually got me here is very exciting. I do love to tell my story, as hard as it may be at times. Parts of it may be, but my goal here is to share it with you, share some tips and best practices for how you might be able to find your purpose, and hopefully just have some fun, quite honestly. So I'm going to share my screen. I have the dreaded presentation queued up here. It's pretty light on content, but I think it does a pretty good job of laying out the framework for how I want to tell this story. So my presentation or talk is formally entitled "Moving Toward a Life of Purpose, Somewhere I Belong," which is inspired by the Linkin Park song of the same title, "Somewhere I Belong." And I was considering singing a song to you myself. I was considering playing the lyrics, but I just felt like that would get too cumbersome and unwieldy and probably really annoying. So I just took a quote from the song that really, I think, encapsulates what I've been through personally, and you know the song just has a lot of meaning to me, right? So the quote you see on the screen, "I want to find something I've wanted all along, somewhere I belong." And when I listen to the song, if you know it, there are just so many words and so many descriptors in it that bring up feelings, right? Words that come up in the song, or feelings that come up for me when I listen to it. Being lost, which I feel like I was lost. I was in pain. I didn't know what I wanted to do, with my life. I didn't know which way to go. I was confused. I wasn't sure where I wanted to be, if I was in the right place. Was I making the right decisions? I felt shame at times. I felt a lack of belonging. I felt like I was empty, right? All those things are things that I feel when I listen to the song. And as I talk to you about my story of purpose here, like, that's what I had to go through for many, many, many years, till I got to the point where I had the motivation, I had the desire to start to make changes. And one of the things I'll continue to hit over and over and over again in this presentation is that, for me, finding purpose, it wasn't as easy as just kind of closing my eyes and looking up to the sky, or having a dream one night. I really had to go out, and I had to look inside myself and do a lot of hard work over a long period of time to find my purpose. So let me just start off by telling you who I am. You know, I thought this was kind of cute. I recently earned my master's degree in sports psychology, and I'm a student of motivation. Um, I like to talk about purpose, talk about my why, your why. I think it's really fascinating to me why people do the things that they do, what drives them. So I would say that I am qualified from an academic perspective to talk about this topic, simply based upon my understanding of motivation, which may be a little bit better than the average person's. I'm my own boss. I started my own consulting practice in 2017 when I went back to school. I've been a business consultant for over 20 years in my life, and I brought that business experience to bear in the process of getting to where I am today. It also led me here in that I knew I didn't want to be a business consultant anymore. It was a good life. It was comfortable. I made good money. It wasn't a terrible job. I didn't find the meaning in it every single day. It didn't make me want to get out of bed. I was doing it for all the wrong reasons, or I was, as we would say in the motivational world, or with motivational theories, I was extrinsically motivated to do my prior job, my prior career. I was driven by external rewards, prestige, money, security, fame, not fame, but, you know, people looked at me as if I was important. And, you know, all those things mattered for a while until it was unsustainable. Um, I'm a servant. Okay. Probably first and foremost, that's what drives my purpose is I want to help other people. And, you know, I'm a father. You see my two kids there at my graduation. I love them to death. They're my best friends. You know, first and foremost, I serve them as a parent, you know, and, you know, that's good enough for me. I love to be a part of their lives and help them grow and to succeed and do all the things and just, you know, be themselves. But another aspect of my life, which isn't displayed here on these slides, is I'm a recovering compulsive gambler. I've spent almost 8 years in a 12-step recovery program. When I stopped gambling, that was the lowest part of my life, in terms of my self-esteem, um, just my behavior, how I was as a person. I had really kind of spiraled out of control, had this obsession, compulsion, whatever you want to call it, with gambling, and I couldn't sustain it anymore. And it really brought me to my knees. And in the Gamblers Anonymous 12-step program, I truly learned the meaning of helping others, right? In that program, in that environment, we all are all serving each other for no other purpose than to get better and to make our lives better and to give to other people for that betterment. And it really struck me that I wanted to have a life and I wanted to have a career that allowed me to exhibit the same behaviors and values as I did in that program. You know, obviously, money is a part of any profession, a part of all of our lives. It represents security, it's represents success and all these things. But I wanted to be able to go to a job where I could help people every single day without worrying about the money element of it. I wanted to get up because I loved what I was doing. And I think finally, you know, as a sports psychology professional, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about me as an athlete, right? I think a lot of people can relate to athletes being involved in sports, whether you're youth, adolescent, you participated in college, maybe you were a professional, maybe you compete now. You know, I was a good high school athlete. I've competed athletically in my adulthood. I've been injured, all those things, right? That also serves me in this process. Knowing what it means to put in the work, to to be driven to do those things, right? So that's kind of just that's the picture of who I am because all those things, like I said, brought me to where I am today to give you this talk about my story of finding purpose. It shapes who I am. And hopefully, as I continue to tell the story and get into the connections to how it can help you and how I can help you to go in that direction, you can refer back to the story and those anecdotes and those examples that I've given along the way here. So how did I get here? Right? You know, I told you my story there for a bit, but I wanted to throw out some of these numbers as a way to put things in perspective of where I've been over the last 45 years of my life. Okay. I earned my first master's degree in 1999, over 20 years ago, in public policy from the University of Chicago, a very prestigious school. Certainly something that gets people's attention when they see it, but I no longer use that degree. I I pursued that degree because I thought that it was the best chance for me to earn a living at the time. And it wasn't sustainable. And I used it for 20 years and I probably got my money's worth, but you know, I'm probably already past it. Not to say that I won't use my experiences and my learning and my education in some capacity in this new life I've created, but I'm already past it. Like I said, I've been in recovery for 8 years from a compulsive gambling addiction. The best 8 years of my life going into recovery um, was the greatest thing that I've ever done. More so than having children, more so than anything in my life, because it was the hardest thing that I've ever had to do. It was so humbling to stand up in front of a group of people and say that you are an addict. And that ability, that challenge, that bottom, if you will, gave me the strength and courage to find myself to the place I am today. So I had to get there to get where I am now. And I value that so, so much in my life. I'm divorced after almost 13 years of marriage. I'm divorced as of 10 days ago, 11 days ago. All right. So this is very new. It's been ongoing. Maybe some of you have been through a divorce. There are a lot of reasons why my wife and I, my ex-wife and I are no longer together. But I think a big part of that is this process of finding my purpose. Because before, when I was married and I was in my old career, I was doing things to make other people happy. I was doing things to keep up the appearances, to keep the peace, to keep everybody else, secure and safe. But I was miserable. And when I figured out that I didn't want to be miserable anymore, and I started to make these changes, it had an effect on my wife and my kids and other people in my life. And I had to make a choice as to whether that was more important to me than to them. And as I've learned in Gamblers Anonymous, we have to take care of ourselves first before we can take care of anybody else. And that's what I've learned to do. I've learned to take care of me first. And sometimes that means relationships that we have and things in our life that we cherish may not work out the way we want them to. I've talked about my career already more than once. I've been in business consulting for 20 years plus now. I do some business consulting on my own today, which I love because I do it sparingly and I do it for me. I don't work for a big employer like I used to. I work for big globally recognized companies. I was caught up in the rat race, 24/7 email, travel for the sake of travel, nonstop meetings, running, anxiety, stress, panic attacks, all of it. And I didn't want that anymore. And that also was part of the process of me getting to where I am today. And in total, it's my life, right? These are all milestones, or these are all critical elements of my life. But every day that I've lived on this earth from the time I was a kid, which was a challenging thing, environment in and of itself that I won't get into, but everything I've seen and done and heard and failed at over the last 45 years has gotten me to the point where I'm actually happy with who I am and what I'm doing in my life. So if there's something else I'd like for all of you to take out of this presentation tonight, is that it's never too late. I tell people this all the time, whether it's in this kind of setting or informally, it's never too late. And people will write you off. People will kind of snicker at you or be like, no, it's not, I can't do it. I can't do it. And I think I felt that way for 5 years before I actually pulled the trigger on my career change. So I get it. But you need someone to tell you that it is possible in order to get over that, right? We need help. And I'm going to talk about that too, how others in our lives influence our ability to find our purpose. So to be very clear, I want to define what purpose means to me, okay? For me, purpose means getting out of bed every day and doing something that I absolutely love, that I'll do for free. And in fact, a lot of my mental performance coaching work that I do with my athletes who are in high school right now is free. I'm doing it as an experience to learn from. I'm doing it as a loss leader, as an investment in my business. But I'm also doing it as a service to those people those kids who are no longer participating in athletics because school's been, in-person school no longer exists for them. And I wanted to do a service for my community, the people around me. And I love it. I love getting up and seeing my guys on Zoom call and talking to them about what they're working on, right? To me, that's sustainable every day. I don't make a dime, and yes, I have to make money, and that's another issue, but I'd rather not make money and be with them than make a lot of money and not, I guess is the best way to put it. So I want to lay out my goals for the talk, very, very clearly, very simply. I'm sharing my story. I think it's important. I want to get that across. Again, I hate to keep coming back to this, but I'm going to harp on it probably. My experience in 12-step, we talk about sharing our experience, strength, and hope, right? And For me to share my experience and tell you that I've done it is way more effective than telling you what to do without having done it. That's just my view of the world. And hopefully you can relate to what I'm saying. Secondly, I want you to understand, and I made reference to this earlier, purpose doesn't fall out of the sky. You have to go look for it. You have to pull it out from inside of you. That's what I had to do. I always knew that I wanted to have a career in sports, which I have now, which is great. Now, it turns out that I'm not in sports simply because I want to be in sports. Sports is just a vehicle for me. I want to help people. I had to go figure that out. I had to figure out through my experiences, through my introspection, right, through accountability to others, that helping others was the primary purpose, and that sports was playing a role in that, was a vehicle. And as we get to the end, towards the end, I'm going to talk, and this is where I'll use some of my training, in a little bit more detail, is how do we build a mission around that purpose, right? We know we want to help somebody, but what does that look like, right? How do we get up every day and execute, right? What are our goals? What are the actions we're going to take? How do we measure it, right? If we want to live a life of purpose, our actions and our mission have to align with what we value and believe every single day. So hopefully by now, you have a sense of why you might be interested in listening to what I have to say. And maybe you don't, right? Maybe it's still unclear to you. You don't know who I am, why I'm here. But first and foremost, whether, regardless of the fact that I'm a sport trained in sports psychology, I'm a mental performance coach, and that's all great. And I think that that's part of the package here as to why I'm qualified to give this kind of talk to all of you. First and foremost, I'm telling you it's possible because I did it, right? To me, I'm living proof that you can find your purpose at any time, whether it's at 40 or 45, at 60, 80, whatever. It's never too late. And I like to believe that my story, my example of that, can give you some of that hope through my experience. And again, I'm a student of motivation. Let's just put it that way. In my training in sports psychology, motivation is something I've spent a lot of time researching, a lot of time thinking about. It's something that really fascinates me because of the way it relates, the way I think about motivation in my own life, right? How did I get to the bottom and stop gambling when I had done it for 25 years before? Start over and build towards, from the bottom up, towards this new life of purpose, right? It wasn't easy. It wasn't without hurdles. It was very, very difficult. And I had to work through that. And I understood that I had to be motivated to do that every day. And going back to my purpose every single day when I felt like I didn't want to proceed because I felt like a failure, I felt ashamed that I wasn't making money, or I felt ashamed that I was in school at 40-something years old, or whatever the case may be, I always went back to, I want to help people. And if that's my purpose and my mission is to do that as a mental performance coach, then I got to forge on and find a way, find the courage. So if there's three things I want you to take away from this presentation, it's very simple, right? I mean, and first of all, let me say, I'm going to throw another 12-step programism at you. Take what you want and leave the rest, right? I don't care if you buy everything I have to say. If there's one thing or two things that stick with you and work for you, resonate, take them, use them, and throw the rest away, right? The three things I think are most important are: purpose is fueled by our emotions, right? Like when I told you what my definition of purpose is, right? I want to smile when I get out of bed thinking about what I do, right? That means what? I'm happy. I have a feeling of happiness. I have a happy feeling of joy. Like, what are the feelings? What are the things in your life that give you those good feelings? Like, and start there. Like, that's where the purpose comes from, right? It comes from your gut. And a lot of times our head overrules our gut in life because of the perception that security, the perception that money, the perception that all these external or inanimate things in our life are more important than actually our feelings. But for me, once I had that feeling and that knowledge of what made me happy, I had to go get it, right? Again, I'm going to hammer this one. I apologize for being redundant. Purpose doesn't appear. You got to go get it. You got to work at it. I'm hopefully going to share some tools with you to go find it. And all of your actions should tie to your purpose, right? I just made mention of that, or I alluded to it, right? Like, if you have a clear purpose and you're able to cultivate that and put it on a piece of paper and write it down and say, like, this is why I get up every day, then what you're doing should reflect that. Your actions should be aligned with your purpose, and you should always be able to go back and reference that purpose and act in that way. It's really, really critical. It was for me. All right. So I'm gonna talk about my process in really three stages. Identification of my values, which is something I think all of you should consider doing. And I'll talk to you about how I did that, what it looked like, what my values are. Obviously, they're going to be different for everybody, but that's the first part. And then once I established my values, I moved on to what's my purpose, right? I know what's important to me. I know the things, the attributes in my life that I want, the things that are really critical. So what am I going to do, or what's going to make me live those values, make me feel like I'm genuinely happy every day, right? Then I'm gonna segue into, okay, now we've got our values and our purpose. Now, how do we build the mission? How do we get more specific? How do we find what we want to do every day of our lives that helps us live the values and purpose that we've already established? The last step is to execute, but it's not linear the way it's laid out here, right? We're always executing on that purpose from day one, right? From the minute we decide we want to do something different, we go looking for a purpose, we go to find it, we start writing down our values, we write down our purpose, we write down a mission statement. We're always executing, right? We're executing toward it. For me, I'm in the later stages of execution. I establish my values, establish my purpose, establish my mission, right? Now I'm executing on that every day in my new career, but that wasn't always the case. In fact, to put it in perspective, right? I probably started to work on finding or discovering my values or identifying my values in 2013 or 14. So 6 or 7 years ago, legitimately, in therapy with my therapist, before any of this was even a pipe dream. Then I started to work on my purpose a little bit later with my career coach, somebody else who helped me. And I'll talk about all of them a little bit more detail. With my career coach in 2015, maybe 16, right? 5 years ago. Then I started to find my mission through my graduate school training, right? I want to be a mental performance coach. Here's what I want it to look like. Here's what's important to me. Here's my philosophy of practice. That took 3 years to really clarify. So it took me 7 years to the point that I'm at now. For a lot of people, that's going to be daunting, right? Those are the people who say, I can't do it. I can't give up my income. I can't walk away. I have kids. I have a mortgage. I have all those things. And I get that. I did too. I'm not sure how I found a way to do it. Maybe it was sacrificing my marriage, and not to be glib about it, but there is some truth to that, right? But it always comes with a price. How much do you want it? And if you don't want it that much, that's okay, right? If you don't want it, that's okay. Like, no one's going to judge you. I'm not going to judge you. Right? It's hard. I wanted to quit. In 7 years, there's so many times I wanted to quit. I'm too scared. I can't do this. No, I can't. Right? I just can't anymore. Until one day I just couldn't take it, and I quit my job, and it was over in a flash. But you're always executing. So I've talked about these people a little bit. My career coach, he took me through a process of really understanding what I wanted to do, how I wanted to do it, research, interviews, identifying the things in my life, the experiences that were good to me, putting this all down on paper over the course of 2, maybe even 3 years, an immense amount of time, effort, and money. But I couldn't have got here without his help. My therapist, I met her 8 years ago. I started seeing her once I stopped gambling, or before I stopped gambling. I was still gambling when I saw her. She helped me to explore the feelings that went with it, right? What's important to me. She's the one that went through my values priority exercise, and I'm going to take you all through that. I had a place to go where I could talk express my fears. I wasn't being judged. That helped me. I was accountable to her. I'd tell her my story about what I wanted to do. If I come back the next time and I said, I'm going to quit or I'm not going to do this, I would have been embarrassed. So I had her and she supported me. And then I have a sponsor in my program. And some of you might not have that because you're not in a program. Thank God, right? Thank God that you haven't had to go through what I've gone through, right? But my sponsor is he's my COO. I talk to him, all the time. We talk about operational problems. We talk about finances. We talk about marriages. We talk about everything. And he gives me hard advice, things that I don't want to hear. And I need that, right? So what's the point? The point is these people all were contributing to me finding my purpose. And I would advise, I would urge you to find those people in your life. They don't have to be people that are paid like a therapist and a coach, a career coach, or they don't have to be a sponsor because, you might not have that, but maybe it's a professional mentor. Maybe it's a family member. Maybe it's a friend, whoever it is. Find those people that you trust and have them take you through the process and support you. Because otherwise, if you try to do it on your own, I think it's going to be really, really hard. I can honestly say, I don't know that I would have been able to do it by myself. So now I'm going to get into my values, and I've prioritized back in, 13, 14, 6, 7 years ago, I prioritized the values that were important to me before I ever thought about a career change. This was just like, hey, what do you want to get in your life? What do you want to get out of your life? What do you want? What's important to you? And so this exercise is the foundation of me finding my purpose, right? So for me, number one was peace and serenity. I wanted the drama, the craziness of the gambling, the anxiety and the panic attacks, which I was having. I wanted it all to go away. And I just wanted to be able to live a simple life and be accepting of what I had and be peaceful. I needed that, right? I was an impatient person. I was an angry person. I wanted to work on those things. I wanted to build my self-esteem. I wanted to feel worthy of doing the things that I wanted to do with my life, right? And so what did I do to get that? Well, I went to program meetings. I went to therapy, but I also started to meditate, and I started to practice yoga, and I started to read a lot of books, self-improvement books, right? Try to discover myself, doing journaling, all those things, to look inside myself, to be introspective, and figure out like, hey, who am I really as a person? I had never done that before. And that was a great first step. And I would never, if I had to go back and reorder these, this would still be number one, because without this, there's no way I could do what I'm doing now, because I probably would have had a nervous breakdown because it's been so stressful at times. Ironically, my second most important priority was a loving marriage. And unfortunately, my marriage is over, but at the time, it was important to me. And what was important to me was that my partner was willing to come through it with me hand in hand. And I think what we've learned, she and I, over the last 7 or 8 years particularly, is that she wasn't willing to do that. And there certainly is a lack of trust there still because of the things that I did while I was gambling. And even some of the things that I've done since. I'm not perfect. I wanted, a marriage that had, all these different attributes, and better communication and more affection and greater trust and, more spontaneity. And we weren't able to find those things. It was hard. We tried, went to couples counseling early on. It was effective. We went again very recently, and it was a failure. It was the beginning of the end. And so the reason why I think that this value did not play out, or it did play out in the sense that I don't feel like I have a loving marriage or had. And so without that value in place, I have to move on. I don't want it to take away from my purpose and take away from what I'm trying to accomplish. My kids mean the world to me. I want them to be happy. That was always a priority. And I felt like in the process of discovering my purpose, I started to truly believe that if I live my purpose and I was truly happy, then they would be happy too. And then I would be a role model for my kids. And it really, I think that's really played itself out that way, right? I'm happy, I'm serene, I'm peaceful, I'm working towards something, and I'm showing them there's a different way to do things, that they don't have to go the I'm going to go to college route, I need a degree, I need to make a lot of money. They could see that their dad has done this thing later in life when it wasn't really very easy, and they can use it as an example, and this drives me, right? I want to be good at what I do. I want to live my life, and I want to show for them that it's possible. So this is a huge driver in my purpose, right? They're the people I serve first, like I said before. So they're the basis for all of this, right? It's just the relationship is so important to me. Substantive friendships. And I think, at the time when I was going through this, and these are the cards that I wrote, that my therapist, wrote down these values on, and we did an ordering exercise and all that. So I still have these from 7 years ago. And, I'm showing them to you today because they mean something to me. And I wanted to have, substantive friendships. And I think that the premise of that back then was, well, I felt like all my friendships were predicated on gambling, which turns out isn't true today. When I told my friends that I had a gambling problem and that I was going to stop gambling, I was petrified that I was going to lose my friends. But they all supported me and they stuck with me. And it turns out I did have substantive friendships, and I still have those friends today, most of them. No one left me behind because I had a problem. In fact, they've embraced me for my vulnerability. Further, I've made new friends in my program mostly, and they're probably the most important friends that I have because we share these same values very closely. And these friendships, they motivate me, they inspire me, they help me live my purpose. They're really, really important. I want to live a well-balanced life, right? The fifth value here, we hear the same thing. We hear it all the time. I want work-life balance. I want work-life balance. I need to live a balanced life. But what does that mean, right? There's so many ups and downs in life, right? It's just not that simple. For me, I work 24/7 now if I want to, and I will at times, but I also choose when to shut it off. And that was a big driver in me getting into this line of work, having this mission. A big part of it was I wanted to work for myself, right? And to me, it's not that I'm working, 8 hours a day and then I'm not doing anything else and I'm taking care of all my needs, but I do want to make sure that I'm caring for myself, because if I don't take care of myself first, like I said, then I can't take care of others. I can't serve my clients. I can't serve my kids. I can't serve my friends. So I really do strive to live a well-balanced life. And what are some of those things that I do to live out that value? Well, I establish goals and priorities and for my day, day by day. I schedule my days a lot of the time to prioritize what it is that I want to accomplish, so that I have it written out and I have a very clear vision of how I want my day to go. You know, I'm surrounding myself with the kinds of people that I want to be around. That helps me live a well-balanced life. They support me in my desire to to live the way I do. Right? There's a lot of different things that I do to live this well-balanced life, and it serves me now as I pursue my purpose every day. Intellectual stimulation, I would say that, back then, this was the sixth most important priority. For me, I think it probably comes up the list now. I'm learning that intellectual stimulation is just so important to me, right? And I can tie the idea of intellectual stimulation to helping others. In my work, my job is to understand, listen actively to another person, understand what concerns them or what's troubling them or what they want to get better at. I've got to process that information, be able to relate to them, and then formulate an idea, a solution, or a plan for them to help address that issue. To me, that's the highest form of intellectual stimulation, because every issue is different. There is no textbook. There is no cookie cutter, right? I'm not solving an equation. I have to think about all these elements that relate to a human being who's looking for help, and I have to find a way to help them in a way that they're comfortable with. So I'm stimulated every day, and I found the work that I need to fulfill this value. Physical fitness, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. Being physically fit is an important part of my life. It may be for you, maybe it's not, it's okay. But for me, it just helps me feel good. It helps me feel like I'm accomplished. It helps me, again, keep that peace and serenity to live that well balanced life is really important to me. And I gave up physical fitness in my old career because I was constantly working, and I deprioritized it because I felt like it wasn't important or I didn't deserve it. But for me now, it's a non-starter to not work out, right? It's a deal breaker. My love of sports. I always wanted to work in sports, and I never had the courage to do it because I didn't know how. And it really ate at me. But even further, my gambling was predicated, very much, most of my gambling was predicated on sports. And I had to establish a new relationship with sport. And I wanted to get my love back from a pure place. I didn't want it to be about what I was betting on. I wanted it to be about the way I grew up as a kid, why I loved it as a kid, what made sports special for me, the competition, the camaraderie, the challenge, the intrinsic motivation to get up and go, to play, to go to the field, to put the uniform on, to grab my baseball glove. All those things that I love so much, they went away and I wanted it back. And now I've gotten it back, and now I'm serving others in this field. And it's not about the outcomes. It's about their process as humans. And I love it. I love it. It means so much to me to have that opportunity. It's absolutely a 100% a privilege. I wanted to have fulfilling hobbies. Again, I won't talk a ton about this. I just wanted to have some things in my life that were outside of work, that were outside of my physical fitness that I could do. And I'm not very good at this right now. I'm still not good at it. I don't have a lot of hobbies. You know, I read less now. I have less time, going through a divorce, whatever, trying to build my own practice. Um, I still strive for this, but probably not as important as the next one, the next and last value, which is, and really what we're here to talk about, I think largely, is finding a meaningful profession. I wanted something that I love to do, but I had at that point, no idea what it was. I just knew it was important to me. I knew the job that I was doing didn't have any meaning to me. It didn't fill me with purpose. And I knew I wanted to find that. But the truth of the matter is that you think that this would be number one on the list, but it's not, because I had to have all of those other things first. And all the work that I did over 3 or 4 or 5 years to get to the point where I was actually even in the ballpark of a new profession, I had to work on my peace and serenity. I had to work on my friendships. I had to work on my marriage. That all came first. I couldn't change my career. I couldn't go find my purpose until I stabilized all of that. So for some of you, you might have turmoil in your life. There may be some things that you want to address or clean up or get better at before you go and try to find a purpose or a career. For me, I had to figure out who I was. And I did that through the first 9 values. Who am I? What do I want? What's important to me? Do I matter? Do I deserve this? And then once I got comfortable with that, then I was able to move towards my profession and talk about what that means in terms of finding purpose. So my purpose is helping others. I skipped it, right? Simply put, what is my purpose? What is Mike's purpose? Right? I define purpose generally and what my opinion is. To me, purpose is simply to help others, to be of service, right? That could be in any way, right? I get up every day and I want to help people, whether it's my kids, whether it's my clients, whether it's my neighbor, whether it's a friend. Like, everything I do is driven by that idea, or I try to make it be. Because also serving others gives more. When you get more, you give more than you get more than you give, right? Right? Giving for me made me feel good. And I knew I wanted that feeling. I learned that in Gamblers Anonymous. And I wanted to take that and expand that into my life. I wanted to be of service to other people for a living, right? But that doesn't say that here, right? It just says I want to help people, right? So the next step was taking that purpose and those values that I talked about and combining them and saying, okay, now what do I want that to really to look like? What's my mission in life? When I get out of bed, I want to help others and smile. That's great. But what's my mission? So for me, it became, I am a mental performance coach in order to help human beings to develop, grow, and reach their potential. I am committed to pursuing this objective every day and in all situations in an ethical and empathic manner. That took a long time for me to come up with, but that is my mission every day. That's what I do. Center of that mission is me serving performers, mostly athletes, but that could be a business person, that could be a dancer, it could be an artist, it could be a teacher, a fireman, whatever. Anybody who performs and wants to be better, my job is to help them find it. Not because I have the answers, but because I'm trained to help them look for it. I'm trained to ask the questions. I'm trained to give them the skills. And I love that. It lets me help other people. I do that in the sporting arena. I love sports. It's the perfect job for me. And I wouldn't have found it without all the work that I put in, all these years, 7 years and more of the things that I did and the experiences I had, the failures, the successes, all of that got me to this point where I'm able to articulate in 2 sentences what it is I get out of bed every day for. Not to pat my own back, but I think that's pretty impressive. And I want to help you get there. I want to help you get to that point. So, and so this is what we're going to talk about, right? How do you build a mission statement? Right? And there's just a list of questions here, right? A mission statement is just like what I had put on the paper there. It's, what do you want it to look like every day? Right? Once you've looked inside, you've identified the emotions that make you feel good and what that is tied to, what purpose gives you those emotions, and you figured out, this is what I want to do. I want to help others. I want to solve, hunger. I want to clean up the environment, whatever it is that you want to do as a purpose. Then you get to this point of like, okay, now I kind of know what I want to feel. Well, how am I going to do it? What am I going to do so that I feel like that more often, or I feel like that every day, right? So this also forces you, this exercise of building a mission statement forces you to look inside, right? What are my personal reasons for wanting to accomplish a special goal, something that has real meaning, right? Why am I doing this? We hear it, if you listen to Simon Sinek, why, what's my why, starts with why. I read the book. I love it. I love the idea. Like, why? What's important to me, right? Like with purpose, what emotions come up for you when you're enjoying work, right? Like, what things about your current job make you feel good, right? When things are going well, what does that look like? What are the emotions that come up? How do we replicate them? How do I put myself in an environment where I get more of that? I get more of that, where I get, on balance, good feelings more than bad, right? Then the accountability piece. Who's influenced you? Who do you trust? Who's going to help instruct you and guide you along the way? Who's going to hold you up when you want to fall down? Identifying those people, those accountability partners, your trusted servants, those people that help you to get through this process. You need them, right? And that's part of understanding where the support comes to execute on your mission. Is there someone in your life that motivates you toward accomplishing your goals, right? This might be one of those mentors. This might be a parent or a brother or sister or a friend. But finding those positive people that can help push you along, again, hold you up, get you through the tough times, that won't let you quit, that'll tell you something honest, right? Think about that. Who are those people? And then, do you have a unique personal philosophy that's expressed in your work or whatever it is you do, right? I'm assuming it's work. When people think about purpose, I think they think about work. I do. Maybe I'm wrong, but do you have a personal philosophy? I never did. I never had a personal philosophy in my life. Now I have a philosophy of practice. I know how I want to help other people. I try to live out that philosophy. I have it on paper. There are certain core values that I live by, right? Never had core values in my life. Core value was, hey, make more money. Be able to go out and do your thing and not worry about other people, right? Now for me, in my practice, I put the person first. person over performer, right? The performer pays the bills, but the person is much bigger than a performer. And for me, it's about showing that I care about the person in totality first, rather than just them as an athlete or a business person or a dancer or an artist or what have you. My intention is greater than what I produce for them, what I call intent over content, right? My intention for them is much, much more important than what skills I'm teaching them or what content they're learning or what I'm teaching them on a day-to-day basis, right? I could be the smartest guy in the world. I could have the best, technical abilities in terms of teaching mental skills, mental performance elements. But if they don't feel like I care about them, that my intent is to serve them as people first, to serve them as a whole first, they're probably not going to buy into what I'm selling. And then you can't do anything, right? That's all part of my personal philosophy. And I think to kind of bring it together for you, it's, again, think about that trajectory of start with the foundation, which is your values. Then you take those values and say, like, okay, like what makes me feel like I want to get out of bed every day? That's my purpose. Then you say, okay, I want to get out of bed every day to do this. Well, then draw a clearer picture in your mission statement by asking yourself these questions, right? And research it, look at it. I'm not the authority on mission statements. There's so much research out there in terms of how you build a mission statement, what it's good for, right? If you're curious, go do it because it's there for you to do if you really, really want it. So now we've set our mission, right? Now we have a vision, a picture of what we want. Maybe that we'll call that outcome goal, right? This part, the left part of the screen where there's the area to write, this is a handout I use with a lot of my clients, right? That could be your mission. Like, what do I want to get out of this? What do I want it to look like? What do I want my mission to be? Then you've got those layers, right? You got the values, the purpose, you got your mission. Now, what am I going to do on a periodic basis, right? What are my daily process goals? Process goals are fully in your control. They're task oriented, right? If I know my purpose is X and I know my mission is Y, if I know my purpose is to help others and my mission is to be a mental performance coach to help those people reach their potential, then what am I doing every day that reflects that? Is me updating my QuickBooks or is me, reading the newspaper going to do that? No, right? It's going to be reaching out to my clients. It's going to be scheduling meetings. It's going to be posting on social media about what I do and what I believe, what's my philosophy, so people get to know who I am, right? It's going to be reading articles about motivation, self-determination theory, which is a theory within motivational framework, right? I'm doing things on a day-to-day basis that I can control to attain that mission, to attain that purpose. Small chunks, process orientation, right? But then what are my performance goals, right? How do I measure myself? How am I getting better, right? Well, right now I have 6 clients. In 3 months, I might want to have 12 clients. In 18 months, I might want to have, 40 clients, right? Performance goals are showing how we want to grow, right? How do you want to get to that purpose and mission? How do you want to, where do you want to get to? Well, okay, what's the next step up? Now, those aren't performance goals like they are in the middle of this pyramid. They're not entirely in our control, right? We're competing against ourselves, but there are outside factors that are inhibiting us potentially, right? I may do everything I lay out every single day that aligns with my mission, aligns with my purpose, process goals checked off every day, doing it, and I'm not getting the results that I want. What does that mean? It probably means that maybe we're not doing, executing the right process goals, taking the right actions. Maybe we need to change something. What can I do differently? Question I ask myself all the time. What can I do differently? Right? If it's not working, maybe we need to try something different. But maybe it's just bad luck. Maybe you're doing all the right things. And maybe you haven't gone from 6 to 12 clients. You've gone from 6 to 8 clients. And you're going, well, what the hell? am I doing? For me, that happens a lot. I don't get the results that I want with my clients, whether it's with my business consulting practice, whether it's with my coaching practice. I want more business. I feel like I'm doing all the right things. Sometimes we don't get the feedback that we want, and it's frustrating, right? But I have to remind myself that I'm doing these things every day, these process goals. I'm acting on them because it's aligned with my purpose and my mission. And that should be good enough. If I have to change something, I change it. We can change goals all the time, right? We can move our goals. Maybe they're not realistic. Maybe they're not attainable. Whatever it is, we have to constantly be looking at what we're doing, right? And an exercise like this is just an example, but it's a good example of how do we set our goals. Do our actions, our smaller actions, our day-to-day stuff, do our month-to-month stuff, does it align with our mission and vision? We have to be able to measure, right, what it is we want to do. If we can't measure it, then we're probably not going to be successful in getting better. So, I mean, that's in essence, in a nutshell, what I've got to share with you. Hopefully, you learned something from it. Um, I fear that I haven't gone into enough detail and I didn't give you enough to take away in terms of what you could do. Um, and I've leaned on my story to carry the day, that a lot of the examples that I've shared give you the information that you need to go do some of these things on your own. But maybe I could have been more forthcoming or a little bit more forceful in terms of giving you things that you could do, actionable things that you could do every day. Hopefully, this was enough. But if anything, I want you to remember these three things, right? To go back to what I said in the beginning. Please don't forget. Look inside, look at your emotions, what makes you happy, what gives you that positive feedback. Your purpose is fueled by emotions. Purpose is not fueled intellectually. You're not going to think your way into purpose. Purpose is what's in your heart and what you feel good about every single day when you wake up. Okay? Purpose doesn't just appear, right? If anything is obvious from the last whatever number of minutes I've been talking, purpose doesn't appear. I did years of work before I even got to my purpose. It took me time to find my values, to live my values. Then I got to a place where I could establish my purpose. And I had to look for that. I had to literally, I had to write down, handwritten, write down, what do I love? What do I love to do? I was literally writing out my purpose in long form that I had to condense down after I wrote it all out and I prioritized and I looked at everything. And you have to work at it. You might feel it, but you have to pull it out of you, right? Your emotions fuel it, but then you got to go get it and do something with it. And then, like I just talked about with with the goals handout, right? The goals slide. All of your actions should be tied to that purpose, to that mission, right? If you're doing things that are irrelevant or superfluous, that don't tie back to that directly every single day, you're not going to get there, right? And maybe you have a bad day, you have a lazy day, you have a quarantine day, you don't want to do anything, you don't want to do shit. I've had plenty of those, right? Let it go, walk away from it, and come back the next day, right? And get back at it because you can't get it back. And that's something I've learned too, right? I don't look into the past anymore or as much as I used to. I don't look back. I only look forward. If I don't do something, it's gone. I let it go, I accept it, and I move forward. What can I do today to try to live this purpose, to live my mission? Easier said than done. Takes a lot of work. So these are the places you could follow me. I try to be active on social media. Um, I try to put out good content. I do a lot of writing. I share my blogs in these places. I will repost or retweet whatever good, sports psychology, mental performance content. You'll get some spiritual stuff from me. You'll get some personal stuff every now and then, but not a whole lot. But I'd love for you to follow me, and I will follow you back. That's just kind of the way I do things. And it would be great to meet some of you online, hopefully. And I think to go back to where I started from, I want to thank all of you, whoever you are, for sitting there and clicking the link and maybe listening to all or part of this, um, to giving it a chance. I have no idea what it sounds like on the other end. I have no idea what to expect. This is my first time giving a talk like this to the for the Life Mastery Foundation. It's really hard to talk to a camera without any feedback and not having it be interactive. So if you sat through this whole thing or even a part of it, I want to say thank you very much. I'm very appreciative. I'm grateful. I'm humbled again by the opportunity to talk about this. And if if something I said made sense, or something you want to learn more about, or there's something you want to tell me I'm crazy about, there's my info. Text me, email me, contact me through social media. Go to my website. I want to hear from you. I'm not. I want to hear from you, good or bad. I love to interact with people. I consider it a privilege, and I'm always open for a good conversation. So, thank you again. I really appreciate it. It was absolutely my pleasure.